everyone and welcome back to my class. You know that I am Halibunisa, teacher and junior lecturer of Elizabeth High School and Junior College. So in today's class we will discuss about the 13th chapter, that is national liberation movements in the colonies here. So in this lesson here, first to look at the map of these colonies. Here the European countries control most of the Latin American, African and the Asian countries by the 19th century. So in this chapter we will read about how these countries fought for their freedom. So here in the map given here, you can see the colonies of the Britain in pink color and the colonies of the France in blue color and the colonies of Holland in light brown color. So some countries of Asia and Africa continue to be the independent and these are shown in grey color here. Identify all these countries with the help of a modern map world today. So here the even independent countries like China were actually under the control of many colonial powers and the independent only in name. So here we will read about the difficult situations faced by these colonies and how they began to fight against the domination of the European powers. So here most of these countries had different kinds of the people who spoke the many different languages or followed the different religions. So they did not think of themselves as one nation. So here the traditional rules in almost all these countries have been kings and emperors here. So these emperors did not support the idea of democracy and freedom. Absolutely. So as a new movement took shape, here the people in colonies were inspired by the new ideas from Europe like nationalism, democracy and even socialism also. So the experience of some of these countries and compare them with our own country to how the lives of the millions of people of the colonies transferred over a time. So first we will go with the China with the two different phases. So here in this, at the beginning of the 20th century, here China was ruled by the emperors of the Manchu dynasty. Here the Manchu dynasty was unsuccessful in defeating the interest of China from the western colonial powers. So these powers had become a very powerful and influential in different parts of China here. So they had also forced the emperors to give them the economic and the political concessions here, like low import taxes, immunity from the Chinese law and the maintaining armed force, etc. will become here. Common people and as well as the administrators of the empires were unhappy with this. So here the administrators try to reform the system. Here the people also revolt against the domination of the western powers here. In this establishing the republic, here the Manchu empire was overthrown in 1911 and here republic was established under the Sun Yat-sen from 1866 to 1925. Here Sun Yat-sen is regarded as the founder of the modern China and he come from a poor family and studied in a missionary schools where he was introduced to democracy and Christianity also. So he studies the medicines but he was greatly concerned about the fate of China and also he studies the problems of China and design a program of action here. This program was called as the Triple Principles, that is San Min Chui. Here these principles were nationalism. This means that the overthrowing the Manchu dynasty which was seen in a foreign dynasty and as well as the other western imperialists also. And next is that the democracy or the establishing the democratic government. And then the third is the socialism here, which meant the controlling the countries and land reforms to distribute the land to the landless peasants here. So even after the Manchu dynasty was overthrown, here the republic was declared, but the republican government led by the Sun Yat-sen was unable to come over the power. So here the country was soon controlled by the regional military powers called warlords. And then the rise of Communist Party of China here. When Japanese invaded the China in 1937, here the withdraw themselves and the long and the exhausting war had made the China weak here. Between the 1945 and 1949, here the prices rose up to the 30% per month and all these had completely destroyed the lives of the ordinary people, and here the rural China faced two crises. One is that the ecological with soil exhaustion, deforestation and the floods, and the second is with the socio-economic one caused by the exploiting through the land tenure system and the indebtedness and the primitive technology and the poor communications here. So here the CCP had been founded in 1921, soon after the Russian Revolution. So here the success of the Russian Revolution had a powerful influence around the world. So that's why here the leaders such as the Lenin established the Comintern in March 1918 to help bring together a world government that would end the exploitation. So here the Comintern and the Soviet Union support the communist parties around the world, but they followed the traditional Marxist idea that only working class in the cities could bring the revolution here. The Mao Zedong, that is from 1893 to 1976, emerged as a major CCP leader, and he took a different plan by basing his revolutionary programs on the peasantry. So he organized the Chinese peasant to fight for the abolition of landlordism, and he also built an army for the peasants. The millions of landless peasants joined the struggle led by the CCP here. His success made the CCP a powerful political party, and it ultimately won against the Kuomintang. Here the Mao Zedong's radical approach can be seen in the mountains where they camped from 1928 to 1934, secure from the Kuomintang attacks. So here the strong peasants council, that is Soviet, was organized. So this council united through the confiscation and the redistribution of land of landlords. And here the Mao, unlike the other leaders, stressed the need for an independent government and army also. He had become aware of women's problems and supported the emergence of the rural women's associations also. He also promoted a new marriage law that prohibit the arranged marriages and the stop purchase or sale of marriages contracts and the simplified divorce here. After this, now the establishing the new democracy, that is from 1949 to 1954 here. In this, the People's Republic of China government was established in 1949. Here it was based on the principles of the new democracy here. This new principles was an association of all the social classes who were opposed to landlordism and the imperialism also. Here the important areas of the economy were put under the government control. Once in power, the CCP started large scale land reforms measures. So they took away the land of the landlords and distributing them among the poor peasants. After this, now land reforms. Here the land reforms was launched in 1950 to 1951. Here after 2 years of relatively peaceful attempts or to understand the rural situations and forming the peasant associations, etc. are there. The major steps were here the class identification of all the people living in the villages, that is followed by the confiscations and the redistributions of the landlord lands and here the other productive property, and the work teams that were dispatched by the country level land reform committees played a leading role in this process. Here one of their main function was to set up a peasant association and select the activists from them for the local leadership position, and this new leadership was mostly from the poor peasants and the middle peasants. So here in many areas the middle peasants were able to dominate because they were more skilled. So here the work teams mobilized the villages against the landlords through the mass meetings and trials here. So here the landlords were made to the face public humiliation, and a large number of the members of this class were also executed in these trials, and so here the 10 to 20 lakh individuals were there. So all these about the China's two different phases. Now we will see about the Vietnam against two colonies. So first see this map of Vietnam. Here the colonies experience first we will go with. The middle 19th century, Vietnam come under the direct rule of the French here. So France retained the puppet Vietnamese emperor, but here the virtually ruled the Vietnam where the British rule India. So here it influenced all aspects of the Vietnam life just as an Indian under the Britain rule. Here the exports and the landlordism and the peasants here. So the French wanted to develop the Vietnam as an exporter of rice. So they had made the free-fold strategy, that the first was improving the irrigation network, and secondly was that the encouraging the landlords, and third is that the encouraging the marketing agriculture produce like rice and rubber here. So the French started the building canals and the drain lands in a Mekong Delta to increase the cultivation here. A vast system of irrigation works, that is canals, and the earthwork was built mainly with the help of the forced laborers here. So this increased the rice production and allowed the export of rice to the international market. Here the Vietnam had started the exporting 2/3 of its rice production. So here by 1931 it had become the third largest exporter of rice in the world. So this is followed by the infrastructure projects, that is road and railways, to help the transport of goods for the trade and to move the military glaciers and also to control the entire region. And here the Trans-Indochina rail network was constructed to link the northern and southern parts of the Vietnam and China here. Now we will see about the emergence of Vietnamese nationalism here. In schools, teachers and students did not blindly follow the curriculum given by the French here. Sometimes they openly opposed the curriculum and other times they silently resisted. So here, as the number of Vietnamese teachers increased in the lower classes, so it became the difficult to control that what was actually taught in the class. So while teaching here, the Vietnamese teachers quietly modified the text and criticized what was written in the book about the French rule. So here the colonial government also tried to prevent the Vietnamese people from qualifying for the white collar jobs here. So the students opposed and fought against this also. So they were inspired by the patriotic feelings. They believed that it was the duty of the educated to fight for the benefit of society. Exactly. So this created the conflict between the students and the French, and as well as the traditional elite here, since both saw their position threatened by the 1920s. So here students started the forming various political parties such as the Party of Young Annam, and they also started the publishing nationalist journals such as the Vietnamese students and the Vietnamese students. Here in early 20th century, Vietnamese students went to Japan to acquire the modern education. So here the primary objective was to derive out the French from the Vietnam through the education. They also wanted to overthrow the puppet emperor and to re-establish the Nguyen dynasty that had been deposits by the French. So after the Republican Revolution of the Sun Yat-sen in China, here the Vietnamese too were inspired to establish a republican and the democratic rule in Vietnam also. So many students knew that went to China and here the French and later to the USSR also to study and learn about the new political ideas. So here after this, the new Republic of Vietnam here. The new republic in Vietnam faced a lot of challenges, that is France tried to regain its control by using the Emperor Bao Dai here as their puppet, but here faced with the French military, here the Vietnam were forced to retreat to the hills. After the 8 years of fighting, here the French were defeated in 1954 at Dien Bien Phu, and over the 16,000 French soldiers and officers were taken as a prisoners here. So after the defeat of France, peace negotiations took place in the Geneva. So in this negotiate, here the Vietnamese were pursued to accept the division of the country. So here the Vietnam was split into North and South Vietnam here, and here the Ho Chi Minh and the communists took control of power in the north, and the south was handed over to an old emperor who was soon removed by the Ngo within them. Here they built a suppressive and the dictatorial government. So anyone who opposed him was jailed. So his dictatorial rule was opposed by many people who united under the banner of the National Liberation Front, that is NLF. So all this about the Vietnam. Now we will see about the Nigeria with the forming unity against the colonies here. So we know turn to colonism and the nationalism in Africa and studying here the Nigeria on the west coast here. So look at this map. First we will go with British colonism and making of a nation. Idea of the nation states was new to the country of Africa like the rest of the countries of the world. So here the people in Africa were united together through their tribal identity. So here the western colonizers randomly brought together certain areas under the control. Here the country we know as the Nigeria today was actually created by the British by bringing together the different regions around the Nigeria river system where the people of different tribal groups lived. Here the northern Nigeria is dominated by the Hausa peoples who were predominantly Muslims, and here the south eastern part of the Nigeria is dominated by Igbo tribes, while the southwestern portion are dominated by the Yoruba tribes here. So while the people in the southern areas are mostly Christians due to the long years of the missionaries activity. So here many people still practice the tribal religious beliefs here. So before a common democratic political system was built, here the modern Nigeria faced the many conflicts between these three regions. Today also the legacy of the colonialism continues in Nigeria because of the European control over its natural resources, especially the petroleum here. The region of the river Nigeria is one of the most densely populated country of Africa. So this region has suffered from the different kind of colonial rule from the 16th century onwards. So it was a major source of the slaves for America. Here the tribal peasants were captured in the interior of the forest and sold to the European slave traders. But here the after slave trade was abolished in the 19th century, a new interest developed for the colonial powers in the trade of the agriculture produced of these area, especially the palm oil and the cocoa here. And here the British established their rule over the coastal areas in 1861. They developed the Lagos as the center of the administration, trade and education in Western Africa. So here the struggle against the colonism is also started in Lagos, and Pan-Africanism and the Nigerian nationalism emerged here. So after this, now we will see the independence and the weak democracy. After the wave of nationalism in Nigeria, here the British decide to hand over the power of the Nigerians. So they made a complex federal system which made the three major regions of Nigeria autonomous. So here Nigeria became independent on 1st October in 1963. Unfortunately, a just and the democratic balance could not happen here. So soon civil war started in Nigeria. Here the military rule started soon and reinforced the domination of the North people. Made many attempts to bring in the civilian and the democratic governments, but these failed again and again. So here the military regime and the multinational oil corporations which founded the corrupt rules worked together. So they spread the corruption and the suppression of the human rights in Nigeria. So after this, now we will see about the oil, environment and politics here. So here oil was discovered in the Nigeria Delta in 1950s, and soon the various multinational companies headed by the Dutch Shell company here and got the rights of oil drilling. But here today it is the most important natural resource of Nigeria. Here most of the oil wells were owned by these corporations which extract the Nigerian oil and share a part of its profit with the military rules. But here the common people get the very little benefit from this. Here the coastal environment of Nigeria has been disturbed because of the recklessness of the oil extraction by the foreign oil companies. So here the oil spillage from the oil wells has the major impact on the ecosystem. Here the large area of the mangroves forest, which are especially the susceptible to the oil, have been destroyed. So this is around the 5 to 10% of the Nigerian mangroves ecosystem have been destroyed either by the clearing or the oil. So here the oil spills destroy the crops and the aquaculture through the contamination of the groundwater and soil also. But here by this the drinking water is also the frequently contaminated and the sheen of the oil is visible in many local bodies of water. So even if there is no immediate health effect of this water contamination, it can be caused the cancer in the long term. So here the offshore spills, which are usually much bigger in scale, contaminate the coastal environments and causes the decline in the coastal and the local fish production here. Get it? So by this we have completed our 13th chapter, that is the national liberation movements in colonies. Thank you.